If you live anywhere in the basin, whether you're right in downtown Cranbrook or off the main drag in Fernie, you're basically in the wilderness. The woods in this region are never that far away. And in those woods, well, there's lots of critters. Like most basin residents, I'm well aware of these compatriots, since I live a good way out of town and have a robust Kootenai animal population right outside my back door. I shouldn't be too surprised, I guess, if those critters come in the front door, or in holes I'm furiously trying to patch up in our century-old home. And truth be told, I'm okay with the odd mouse in the house, a skunk nesting under an old deck, the squirrel forgetfully stashing fruit in the woodshed. But on this particular evening, the scurries up in the attic were a little too boisterous for me, and especially alarming for my wife and children. After a few nights of ruckus, freshly picked apples in the cold storage had been rearranged. Next day, compost had been tossed about the boot room, even stuffed into shoes. We had a problem. Then it dawned on us. This might be the animal that loomed in our worst nightmares. We didn't want to admit it, but it could only be one gnarly, aggressively messy, and as I've heard, impossible to catch rodent. The infamous pack rat. If you've lived for any amount of time here in the basin, you've seen evidence of the pack rat. An old backcountry cabin stuffed with sticks and leaves and old cans. You've perhaps smelled the offensive odor of a male in old structures. But it is rare to see one in the fur. They are elusive, industrious, and it should be noted, indigenous to the area. Some 15 years ago, we did a story in Kootenai Mountain Culture magazine where a writer documented a pack rat taking up residence in his old pickup truck for weeks. It took a power washer to extricate the vermin. So I did my research. I had to trap this disorganized and unwelcome tenant. Our family's sanity depended on it. Step 1. Against instinct, let a pack rat feel like they're at home. I instructed my family not to disturb our compost-laden boot room, his seemingly favorite locale. Leave boots and shoes packed with banana peels and wilted lettuce, the odd moldy tomato rind. I bought a significant-sized live trap, covered it with even more compost, lined its wire sides with orange peels and carrot tops, baited the back of the trap with all sorts of nuts and goodies, and I waited. And I waited. It was, for all intents and purposes, an art project, albeit a gross, disgustingly smelling one. But hey, I got into it. Day 1, nothing. More detail, more nuance, more flair, more compost. Day 2, nada, except for thumping scurries in the attic. He's getting bigger, more brazen. Now I'd made the boot room look like a vegetable bomb had gone off. The family increasingly concerned over my obsession. Day 3, pack rat, a big one. I was gleefully proud but simultaneously horrified by the muscle tone and reflex speed of the animal. When I went to pick up the trap, I almost dropped it from its formidable lurches. I drove the pack rat deep into the woods. I carefully opened the cage and watched it scurry off a few paces, only to see it stop. I froze, ready to run. It gives me a curious look back, and I can only think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator. I'll be back. I'm Mitchell Scott, Editor-in-Chief at Kootenai Mountain Culture Productions, and this is The Headwaters, brought to you by Columbia Basin Trust. To be or not to be a rodent. The word rodent is loaded, with some real stigma behind it. I say the word out loud to myself, and I immediately think of an unwanted, furry, hard-to-get-rid-of problem. Interestingly, though, the word rodent is not some derogatory slang we made up. Rodentia, The biological term for the order we call rodents represents the largest group of mammals on the planet. There are about 1,500 living rodent species out of about 4,000 mammals overall. Most of us are familiar with the usual suspects: mice, rats, squirrels, chipmunks, and voles. The order Rodentia also includes beavers, muskrats, porcupines, woodchucks, prairie dogs, and marmots. There's also more pet-like, cute little creatures in there like hamsters and guinea pigs. So what makes a rodent? Which ones are invasive? Which ones are native? And perhaps more importantly, how do we live with the ones that perennially try to mess with our scene, burrow into our attic, steal our food, and poop in our cupboards? In this episode, we're going to find out. Aside from humans, rodents are the second most successful mammal on the planet, and we're going to start with perhaps one of the most reviled of all rodents, even mammals for that matter. We're going to talk about rats. Whether we like it or not, they're here, and they're here to stay. Rats. Ooh, we don't like rats. Heebie-jeebies defined. It's true. Not so long ago, for reasons not entirely known, rats had not made their way to the Kootenays. Today, they are fairly established throughout most towns and cities in the region. So, to get to the root of the problem, let's start at the scene of the crime. Okay, so we're heading out past the garden. Where are we going?
Well, we're heading down to the storage area, and it's got a bit of a smell like hockey, but there was a day that I came down here 5 years ago where it wasn't a smell of hockey. It was this smell I had never smelt before, and I thought of stories and of expressions, and I remember that old expression, it smells like a rat, or I smell a rat, and I thought, could this possibly be the smell of a rat?
That's my buddy, let's call him Cal, as he'd like to keep his real name and location private. You see, Cal prides himself on being very tidy, a hyper-neat and organized fella. The poor guy has endured a nightmare rat situation that seems to be happening more regularly in the basin.
Well, I see a rat trap there's a mouse trap and a rat trap, so it's very neatly placed by the tupperwares. Oh, there's a number of rat traps. Are you still catching them?
I haven't caught one now in a year and a half, but the paranoia from those dramatic first 2.5 years still resonate with me even in my dreams. Because there's been many chapters to what was probably a 3-year battle, 3.5-year battle.
A little cruise of the old news feed, and Cal is not alone. Rat problems have popped up in Revelstoke, Kimberley, Castlegar, Trail, Nelson. Heck, the rats got so bad in Creston back in 2019, residents started leaving dead rats on the front steps of City Hall, trying to get officials to do something.
The first rats, I think, were seen in Nelson around 2017. And that's when it was started to be reported. And in the last year or so, we're seeing them up in Caslow, around Balfour is increasing, and I'm around about 13 Mile on the North Shore, and I got my first rat this year.
Meet Lisa Thompson from WildSafe BC, an organization that operates under the umbrella of the British Columbia Conservation Foundation, and one that, according to Lisa, prides itself as being the provincial leader in helping to reduce human and wildlife conflict. In her 4 years at WildSafe, Lisa, who used to be a veterinarian, has become a bit of a rat expert.
Do we know where they came from, how they got here, why they came? What are the contributing factors?
Rats are really great hitchhikers. So, in vehicles, in transport trucks, boats, all of those vehicles that we use to get around and transport goods is where rats kind of hitchhike and then they get out. And once there's food availability and shelter, which is pretty much what we as humans provide for them, they just end up finding a really nice place around here and settle in and start to breed. And they're very prolific breeders.
Interesting factoid. Rats don't live in the wild. they've evolved to be 100% reliant on living in proximity to humans. Kind of like remoras to the shark. You know those small fish you see attached to the underbellies of sharks. This next little factoid, though, it sent shivers up my spine.
Yeah, and I mean, one rat can repopulate or breed at 5 weeks of age. So they start young. I mean, their lifespan's only kind of 1 to 2 years. But in that time, you know, like 1,000 plus offspring, and then that 1,000 plus offspring has another 1,000 plus. So yeah, and they're breeding really young, and that's how we see the population increase tenfold in a blink of an eye.
Creepy. But worse, rats are not a rodent we necessarily want to underestimate. First off, rats are smart. It's been estimated that they have an IQ of about 105. That's 5 points above the average human. So just think about what they could do with opposable thumbs. They are tough little rascals. They can climb trees and wires and can walk away from a drop of 50 feet. Can also jump vertically up to 48 inches. They can tread water for up to 3 days, hold their breath for more than 3 minutes, and have been known to swim their way up sewer pipes and into toilets. They reproduce in about 20 days and will release pheromones to attract other rats to hospitable surroundings. Rats have rib cages that dislocate and shift to allow them to fit through any hole that can accommodate their skull. And finally, their teeth never stop growing, and they can chew through just about anything, including concrete.
So aside from just the lore and kind of irk that we get from rats in our proximity or in our homes, why are they so bad?
Well, yeah, as you said, big ick factor. Rats are kind of associated with dirty places, like dirty houses and stuff, but they bring disease. And in veterinary medicine here in the Kootenays, in the last year or two, we've seen an increase in leptospirosis cases in dogs, and we know that lepto is spread through rat urine, and that's transferable to us people as well. So a lot of the Nelson vets are really pushing for people to now vaccinate their pets for leptospirosis, when that used to be a recommended but an optional vaccine, as opposed to now it's like, oh no, we're seeing these cases and your best bet is to vaccinate against it.
What does that look like, getting leptospirosis?
Kidney failure.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And that can be transferred to humans?
Definitely, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And even just cleaning up rat drop-ins, you should be really careful, because you can inhale spores and stuff, and that can spread disease and viruses and parasites. So on the BC Health website, there's some guidelines on there as to how you should properly protect yourself when you're cleaning up rat drop-ins and handling rats.
So what to do, especially when they've chosen you as the human they want to live with? Let's check back with my buddy Cal, who, upon discovering rats in his house nearly 5 years ago, went on a rat battle for the ages.
But one day when I came down, I noticed some blood stains. And I was like, what is going on? And the trap was missing. This trap was missing.
The big
black
plastic
one. And I'm like, okay. And then I looked over here, and the trap that I had there was also missing.
Oh, God.
So I was thinking, I must have caught a lot of rats. And then I looked over to where I had that little hole in the ground, and I looked down. I was like, no, oh my God. And then I looked down into the hole, and there's who I called Rambo. It took 3 traps. He was a big boy, and I feel bad for the poor guy. He took that last trap and dragged them like Rambo does through the swamp, right, and then dropped down into that hole, and I found him. And man,
he was in that dark gnarly hole.
Yeah, and I had to go down there and pull him out.
Cal tours me around his house and then down into his basement. which is impeccably organized with stacks of labeled Tupperware containers everywhere. There are also literally dozens of traps, including the big Victor trap, which took down Rambo. It's eerie. Cal became obsessed with finding how the rats were getting in, so we go outside to inspect.
Our goal was to put down, fire wall, and we put a drainage, and we filled this all in, and I was hoping it would also eliminate any chance of rats getting in, because when I crawled under here, this is where I saw some light, was at that back left corner.
Right.
And that compost was right there. And the house has a bit of a kink right there from its aging, and I kind of suspect that might be the spot where they might have been getting in.
That looks like you've got it pretty secured now, though.
I think so, but yeah. So once I identified that the turds were bigger than a mouse and I realized it was a rat, I thought I better buy some good traps. And so I bought this plastic flashy looking claw, this black one. That looks gnarly. Which, by the way, has only caught really one rat. I've caught 46, over that time period, 46 rats, and I kept track in my calendar so I could tell the WildSafe BC. That's the one thing I realized, is that all the different traps I used, they would find a way. I even used a bucket with a stick and a can and some peanut butter, and I tried to have them get into the roll on the can and get into the bucket.
Like a gangplank kind of thing?
Yeah, but one would go in, everyone else would learn, and they'd never go back. Except for the old Victor metal trap. That one, it's like a feather touches it, and it takes you down.
What's your bait?
My bait has primarily been Armstrong old cheddar, the old white cheddar. I find that the peanut butter doesn't really work. There was no end. I just kept thinking, what am I missing there? And I still feel like there must be something missing because I'm not 100% confident, even though it's been 1.5 years.
So, what do? I have one friend who lives out in the country, about 30 minutes from the nearest town. And just last year, she discovered rats, first in her greenhouse and then finding their way into her family's home. Let's call her Sally. Sally was taking on the rat problem by herself, but unlike Cal, she wanted help. So she called in the experts, and I tagged along for the ride.
Oh, hi, Sally.
Yeah, Sally.
I'm Ben with Selkirk Pest Control.
Oh, nice.
Hi.
Great
nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
You want to tell me a bit about what you've been dealing with here?
Yeah, definitely. So we've had some rats getting into our greenhouse.
Okay.
Messing with our vegetables, as well as coming into our home as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you currently hear or see any activity?
Not currently.
Inside?
Not currently inside, no.
Okay. Whereabouts were you seeing it?
In the basement, primarily. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and is it a full basement or is it a crawl space?
It's a full basement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And is access from outside or inside?
You can access it from the outside down below and also from the main floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So usually when we're not seeing much activity inside, we'll focus a lot on the perimeter.
Okay.
The most important thing is the building envelope integrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be looking for any ingress points or future vulnerabilities that we can point out and fix to prevent the problems. So you're welcome to join me and walk around, and I'll just take a look. And there's some common areas of problems. Soffitting areas can be common, utility penetrations, sill plate level where the concrete meets the wood of the walls can often be a problem. So we'll check all that out.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Sound
awesome.
Good?
Ben is based out of Castlegar, and his business offers the full gamut of pest control services throughout the West Kootenay region. He's a busy guy, and not surprisingly, a lot of his calls are for rats.
So they can climb. They can climb straight up a wall like that without much of a problem. Squirrels are the most acrobatic, but rats are right behind them in ability.
Okay.
They can't do much upside down horizontal, but they could go vertical like that. And if they were really keen on it, they could start working those holes larger. You would probably hear it. You have pets, dogs, which do help as well, right?
Yeah, we have a cat as well.
Oh, that's great. So there is a pretty good gap there coming around the dryer vent.
Oh, yeah.
You can see how the way that is cut out, basically they just cut off that soffit board. So that one would need to be closed up for sure.
Would some of that like spray foam stuff be ideal?
Spray foam
Or would they chew
is
through
handy to use, but they will chew through it, so you have to have metal mixed in with it. Stay away from steel wool. That's the common go-to, but it degrades way too quickly, especially outside. So you want stainless steel or copper. We have trap systems that are in enclosed, locked boxes so that unwanted targets like dogs or kids can't be harmed by them.
Oh, excellent.
So that would be a good thing for exterior trapping, preventative trapping. You could do it right in here and probably be really successful.
Right.
And our trap boxes have just mechanical traps in there. We don't use rodenticides or poisons at all. There's several reasons. One of the main being we just don't like to be putting poisons into the environment.
Yeah.
Secondly, you're going to end up with dead rats, which are rather large, in your walls, where they try to make it back to their nest.
Okay.
Usually. Sometimes you'll just see them laying out. If you ever see a rat just dead in the middle of a road, that's what's happened to it more than likely. And they stink really, really bad when they die, and it'll stink for a while. So that's also not good. And then it doesn't really fix your problem.
Yeah.
What fixes your problem is sealing up the envelope of your home.
At present, no basin municipalities or the provincial government have any rat control measures in place. Yes, there are info pamphlets and educational resources like those from WildSafe, but no one is coming out to take care of the problem free of charge. One only need to cross a provincial border, though, to our east, and it's a different story.
This is a map of all the people in the world who don't live in Alberta, Canada. Interestingly, this is nearly identical to the map of all the places in the world that are swarming with rats, pretty much everywhere except for Alberta, Canada.
That's a clip from a quirky, trying to be funny video published by the Alberta government. Alberta claims to be a rat-free zone since 1950 and has a provincially funded department specifically set up to make sure rats are kept in check. It's called, quite creatively, Rats on Rats.
Firstly, Albertans are banned from owning rats, even domesticated fancy rats, as pets. Only zoos, universities, and certain research facilities are permitted to possess rats. If a rat were to sneak in on a truck or a plane, there's an active hotline, 310-RATS, and an email address, established last year because email is complicated, where any concerned Albertan can report a rat sighting to the government, who then investigates it thoroughly. Though Alberta gets hundreds of these reports every year, most of them turn out to be squirrels or muskrats or a mafioso who was caught wearing a wire. Only a tiny fraction turn out to be the real deal, and those cases get heavy news coverage, or a 6-minute YouTube video explaining why a rat in Alberta is somehow exceptional.
Case in point, this little news clip hit the airwaves just before we published this episode in August 2025.
I'm Helen Pike, and I'm in the southeast community of Inglewood, where residents are keeping their eyes peeled for a neighbor no one wants to see around here or across the province. There's been a rat sighting in Calgary. Alberta calls itself rat-free, but that doesn't stop some from scurrying across our borders. We can't stop them from getting into the province, but vigilant about keeping them out. Alberta's rat control program is famous and effective.
Alberta has fought the Norway rat to a standstill at the Saskatchewan border.
There's the rat exclusion zone along the Alberta-Saskatchewan border. For sightings everywhere else, there's an email and a dedicated phone line. Some reports get a quick follow-up call. Others warrant a full-on investigation. Next steps involve knocking on doors to alert people, laying these bait stations with traps inside, and monitoring the situation until they find the rat, dead or alive.
Back here in the basin, it sounds like we just have to deal with the situation on our own. Aside from sealing up our houses and setting up a rat trap line, Lisa gives suggestions like making sure fruit from fruit trees is picked up, and if you're composting, use a barrel composter and not a stand-up one, getting rid of your bird feeders, and apparently they like the wiring in Japanese cars.
So get rid of our Toyotas, get rid of our gardens, get rid of our fruit trees.
I mean, I'm never going to get rid of my Toyota. I love that thing.
I don't think I can convince my wife to get rid of our fruit trees.
So, yeah, we definitely need to be managing those a lot better than what we are.
What's your future gut feeling on rats in the region? Are they here to stay? Do we have a shot?
Oh, I hope we have a shot because, you know, rats, gross, ick factor, very damaging to lots of things, right? Even to our buildings and our houses. And so, I mean, if everyone's on the same page and is doing their bit, then maybe we are in with a chance. I mean, everything works better when we work together, right? We get results. So even though I work for BC Conservation Foundation, we are not in the business of conservation for rats, but we are in the business of trying to help reduce human-wildlife conflict, and rats are becoming a big conflict for humans.
So maybe you've avoided a rat encounter or finally got rid of them altogether. But what do you do about these other critters that might be causing you or our Kootenay natural ecosystem problems? And what is a rodent anyway? Here's our resident expert again, Lisa Thompson from WildSafe BC.
So a rodent is classified as a mammal that has 2 front incisors that continue to grow throughout their life, and they don't have canine teeth like, you know, bears and wolves and dogs and cats, and, you know, we even have small canine teeth. So yeah, you're looking at mice, rats, squirrels, porcupines, and beavers, and marmots.
Of this grouping of esteemed Rodentia members, it is interesting to note the species that are invasive. The Norway rat, the roof rat, otherwise known as Rattus rattus, a good name for a punk band, I thought, the eastern fox squirrel, and the eastern gray squirrel. But what about those other mammals we think should be rodents? I pressed Lisa for the answers.
Raccoons.
They are not a rodent because raccoons actually have canine teeth and they have small incisors. So their kind of jaw and teeth makeup are similar to like bears but smaller because they're an omnivore.
And skunks.
And skunks as well. Yep, they're an omnivore.
Hey, a lady, feminine, female, girl, skunk. Hello, young lover, whoever you are. I am Pepe Le Pew.
Oh, hold on a second. I just heard our sound engineer, Graham Tracy, grovel a little bit over at his sound mixing desk. Graham, you okay? What's going on?
I'm okay. I had long believed skunks were rodents. They seem to exhibit rodent-like behavior.
And I've heard you mention maybe you've got the problem with skunks up here at your place?
Well, if my place is uphill Nelson, yeah, because they're everywhere. They're cute. You know, I hear they even make excellent pets. But they are everywhere. Dusk can be a challenging time.
I hear you on the skunk front, Graham. I had a kid get skunked once. He reeked for a week. But rather than trying to get rid of them, which has all sorts of problems associated, Lisa has a different point of view.
The skunk population has increased, and we're pretty much chalking that up to the abundance of the rats, because skunks are really good at eating rats. So skunks are, I feel like they're a little hard done by, mostly because, you know, they smell, and they predominantly come into conflict with our pets.
Do you have rats, Graham?
I've had a few that we found, but they can't get into the house, luckily. And then the skunks came. And then the rats seem to have disappeared.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I still try to chase the skunks out of sensitive areas, like under my hot tub. Talk about a first world problem. But I mix up a little bleach and water solution because in one of the great hypocrisies, skunks are actually quite offended by strong smells.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So you seem to be developing a relationship with your fellow Pepe Le Pew.
I am. I've decided to accept it because really there's nothing you can do about it, and they're attractive and helpful. So I've cozied up.
So we do have reports of a lot of skunks living in harmony with people, and found through that, just talking to them, when people have had to go out to their vehicles in the darker hours, they just kind of say, hey, we're just coming through, and the skunks are just like, okay, whatever, because the only time they spray is when they're feeling threatened or are startled.
Well, really, if there's anything I've learned through my experience living with rodents and doing this episode, is that whether invasive, non-invasive, part of the Rodentia order or not, is the fact that we have to find a way to live with them. So for a little inspiration, I visited my buddy Sam, who lives in a cabin way deep in the woods, who seems, like you do, Graham, a little zen about it all. Hey, Sam.
Morning, Mitch.
Nice cabin you got here.
Yeah, thanks. A little home in the woods.
Yeah, deep woods. I'm doing a little bit of a story on rodents, and I'm just wondering, what's your rodent situation like?
Well, I guess dealing with rodents is a constant thing out here in the cabin. We got mice, in the spring in particular. End up with a lot of mice coming in, and once you kind of have the traps out for a bit and you find all the gaps that they're coming in, you're able to kind of keep them out of the cabin. I got a squirrel right now, a little red squirrel that I'm doing battle with, trying to keep him out of the house. I can show you where he's getting in. It's a constant game of trying to find where he's getting in now and blocking that off. Every time I fill a gap, he finds another little spot, which is great because it's showing me where all the holes in my cabin are.
Looks like you've emptied a few containers of spray foam.
Yeah, that good stuff. You get a 2-for-1 deal at Canadian Tire, and it goes a long way.
But he's still getting in.
He's still getting in. Just last night, I saw him coming along the fence line, heading for the cabin, so I jumped out to try and spook him away. And he took one look at me, and he juked left and then right, and he went right past me, and straight into the cabin. But I saw where he went, so that's my mission for this morning, is to fill that hole.
So you think he's doing any damage? And are you trying to trap him or just kind of keep him out?
I'm pretty much just trying to get it to the point where he can't get in, and hopefully that means that he just goes and finds another spot. Not sure that I'm allowed to trap or shoot him, so might as well just move him along.
Whether they're invasive or they're native species, rodents are here to stay. And if they were originally a part of the basin's natural ecosystem, they have a role to play. And if they're not, well, most of them are smart enough to find a spot and settle in for the long haul. And as human beings, we have a role to play too. And if I've learned anything through my rodent adventure, it echoes what my nature zen buddy Sam is saying. Move along, little rodents. Move along.
And now it's time for...
It's a tiny town.
Welcome to Tiny Town, where we stop by those places we usually pass by. As you wind your way south down the ever-quiet Highway 6 from the cusp to catch the Fauquier ferry to Edgewood, following the Arrow Lakes as you go, you'll pass through the middle of Burton. John Armstrong is a retired teacher from Selkirk College who now lives in Nelson. His grandparents settled in Burton in the early 1900s, and his mother grew up there with her 5 siblings. John himself wasn't raised in the community, although he visited his large family often, but in the 1970s he moved there to start his teaching career at Burton's elementary school. He ended up buying a 10-acre parcel of his grandparents' farm, where he still owns his small off-grid cabin, enjoying the landscape, visiting with family, and watching the area's critters.
Well, it's a very natural, small community, sort of in a place where 3 creeks come together. The mountains all around, the lake, these creeks coming in. I love the forest, the animals that come through my little piece, all the different kinds of trees. The stars are incredible at night. Birds, bats. My aunt's house has bats upstairs, And every evening about 9 o'clock, they come out, they go down the creek and catch mosquitoes and come back.
It should be noted that for the purposes of this episode, bats are not rodents, even though they are mammals and have long, sharp teeth. At its peak a few decades ago, John figures maybe 1,000 people lived in Burton. The 2021 census lists the population at 132 people. However, John is pretty certain the next census will reveal a change.
More young people moved in, young families, young children, and they reopened the school. And so now it's opened again, and they have kids and teachers. And one of the longtime residents said just the other day when I was up, he said, it's just really great to have all these young families moving in. For a while, he said, we were kind of afraid we were becoming a retirement community. But now there's lots of young people, and it's just great.
And that's our podcast on Rascally Rodents and the last episode of Season 4. I wish you all the best in your furry adventures. I really do. I'd like to thank our producer and script editor, Tara Cunningham, our sound engineer, Graham Tracy, and our communications manager, Vince Hemsel. Stacy Michalski does all of our custom art, and Jesse Lee, our music. The Headwaters is created by the good folks at Kootenai Mountain Culture Productions and brought to you by Columbia Basin Trust. To find out more about all the good things the Trust does when it comes to supporting people and communities in the Columbia Basin, visit ourtrust.org. I'm Mitchell Scott. Thanks for listening.